Ladies and gentlemen, we are live and you are looking at it. That is the official bracket released by the FCS. And you are looking at Sam Houston being the number one seed, number two seed, North Dakota State, number three seed, James Madison, the four seed, Sacramento State, and so on and so forth. We just wanted to come on today and talk a little bit about what's going on with this bracket. I know I have my opinion, and we're joined by a four pack of fantastic people who not only know the FCS but love the FCS. First off, Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook, and million other different names, the sharpest dressed man on television today. Emery, thank you for joining us.
Always a pleasure, Gene.
Absolutely, absolutely. Kevin Marshall, the host of FCS Nation. Kevin, appreciate you joining us. Understand FCS Nation, the only national syndicated FCS radio show. So I'm definitely happy to have you here today. And finally, last but not least, Benjamin Sorrells. He runs the Twitter account for Sports of SHSU. I'm happy that you can join us today. And I want to start right there because Sam Houston has the number one seed this year. And I know that was a bit to do last spring when they didn't get a number one seed. So just talk about everything that's going on down there at Sam Houston and the excitement behind having the number one seed.
Yeah, obviously, really, really excited. Thanks for having me on, Gene. Really happy to be here. Really excited down in Huntsville, especially kind of looking forward to what our second round matchup could be, but not getting to that too quickly. But yeah, I think the goal all year was to get that top two seed. Many of you know that Sam Houston has never lost a home playoff game at Bauer Stadium since it's opened, I think in 1985. So once you get that first seed, you're going to have home field advantage the whole way. And you got a really good shot of making the playoffs. And Casey Keeler, I think, has done a really good job of keeping the team focused this year. I think they knew their goal to win the conference championship, to win the WAC ASUN, AQ7, and then to get that top two seed and also to keep guys healthy. We're going into 20-plus games here in one calendar year, so keeping the body healthy, winning the conference, getting that top two seed has really been the emphasis this year, and I think Casey Keeler and the guys have done a great job of it, and I think Sam Houston has a really good shot to repeat.
Absolutely, and I think it really is a testament because you could see there were some times where Sam Houston was really trying to, keep the mileage off the bodies. I know Emery and I had spoken about it back in the spring, thinking about what would be the residual effects of playing back-to-back seasons, and we saw a lot of teams that went deep suffer the injury bug that definitely derailed seasons this year. But Sam was able to avoid a lot of those pitfalls that some of those other teams weren't able to avoid. Emery, I wanna come to you because everybody's always talking about who's in, but I want to start with who was left out. In your opinion, which teams were left out of the tournament that you thought should have been in there?
You know what? I was all prepared, ready to fight on Selection Sunday, but once they released a bracket, I'm like, wow, it actually kind of makes sense. And so the only issue I had was Northern Iowa getting in over someone like Eastern Kentucky. And I think Eastern Kentucky played well enough to get in, because people love to talk. I just hate that we tend to talk more about losses at the FCS level than wins. We're spending so much time talking about, oh, this is a good loss. This is a good loss. Well, you talk about losing. Good teams don't lose. And Eastern Kentucky, to me, had more wins and won more games and probably should have gotten in than Northern Iowa. That would be the only team that I would say has a legitimate gripe for getting snubbed, in my opinion.
Absolutely, and I think when you think about the ones who didn't get in, I also want to come up to you, Kevin, because you were talking about how these leagues were not getting in multiple bids, and you had a real good thought about the Big South. You want to come in and talk a little bit about on what you were thinking about the snubs that you may have seen this year in the bracket.
Well, look, I'm as big of a SoCon homer as there is. I've never denied my bias on that. It's what I grew up watching. It's my home league. We do a national show, but you don't drop those off at the front door when you go into the recording studio, right? But look, the SoCon, a one bid league. Okay, and I get that. Mercer, maybe they have a gripe, maybe they didn't. But when you saw what happened that last week in the SoCon with the Citadel beating Chattanooga, Mercer not beating ETSU, I mean, people are going to be shocked to hear me say it, but I think the committee did a great job, just like Emory Hunt said. Eastern Kentucky, his point is solid. But when you look at it, Northern Iowa, look, that team is always going to get the benefit of the doubt because of the league that they play in. It's always going to be that way. A 6-5 team in, okay, but the scheduling problems in the SoCon are going to continue to go forward. But the Big South, look, Kennesaw, a very deserving team to be in, automatic qualifier. But I do agree with them not getting a seed, and that might not be a very popular opinion. But okay, when you look at who they played, really in the FCS, they played Monmouth, and that's about it. And that was the only team that was maybe a bubble team. I'm not even sure if they were going to be that anyway. But Kennesaw is a team people are not going to want to see because of the triple. And look, that game with Davidson is going to be very interesting to me. Kennesaw does it mostly out of under center. Davidson runs almost the same offense with a little bit more passing in it, but from the shotgun. So it'll be very interesting to see. I think that ETSU has a good shot. And look, when you look at Southern Illinois, they had one of the best wins early in the season, and then they kind of fell off a little bit, picked it up at the end. But if you're circling teams nobody wants to play, I think you have to look at the Missouri State Bears too. Excellent head coach. They have seemed to have been able to get out of their own way, which was a problem in the spring. Interceptions, just losing yardage and having 3rd and 17 all the time. They got away from that, and Jason Shelley is as athletic of a quarterback as you're going to find at this level. I would not want to see the Missouri State Bears.
Absolutely, and I think one of the things that I found to be really interesting about the way in which they broke down this bracket, I didn't really have a ton of issues with the bracket as a whole. What I did take issue with, like Emory, and we discussed it before, I just think a lot of times when you're talking about the Missouri Valley, football conference, they are getting the benefit of the doubt, yes, but who in the Missouri Valley Football Conference, other than North Dakota State, can really claim dominance? Are they getting a lot of their shine because one team has just been so utterly dominant for so long that it makes it impossible to neglect the other teams? I think I would have been okay with 5 teams. I thought 6 was excessive. I think that my biggest issue is, can't we give another team an opportunity to prove that they're not good enough? And it's like, we know we're going to see a first round matchup of 2 Missouri Valley Football Conference teams. Like, do we really need to see 2 Missouri Valley Football Conference teams play in the postseason in the first round after we just watched an entire season? So, for me, that's one of the biggest things. Another thing I was looking at that I thought was interesting is, if we're taking out, if we say we're going to take out Northern Iowa, what's the one team? I know Emory said Eastern Kentucky he believed should have been in. I want to get you back in here, Benjamin. Who would you put in if you were going to take that one Northern Iowa team out?
Yeah, I'm right there with Emory, because I actually saw Eastern Kentucky live. They were in Huntsville a couple weeks ago. The score was 42-28, but in all reality, their offense kind of had a field day with our guys. Our secondary is a little weak. A lot of people know that, but they really chewed us up. And I think Eastern Kentucky can really score, and they could really hang with some of these higher seeds. So if I had to choose a team to replace Northern Iowa, I would definitely go with Eastern Kentucky. Just from seeing them live, I was pretty impressed with them.
Absolutely. Kevin, who would you put in if you were taking out that 6 Northern Iowa team?
I think you'd have to look at either Mercer or VMI. Now, VMI lost to Western Carolina, which is a much better team than they were week 1 through 4. Kerwin Bell did a fantastic job there. But Mercer, they looked like a complete football team against East Tennessee State. I don't know where that passing game was all season, but they threw the ball for over 300 yards against a pretty good ETSU defense. So I think you have to look at Mercer when you ask me that question, I'm sitting here thinking, and I'm struggling to come up with a team that you know nobody got woofed, as they say. Where Wofford got left out 10 or so years ago, or nobody got Lehigh, who was 10-1, lost the Patriot League and didn't get in. That's been 7, 8, 9 years ago too. So I don't believe Eastern Kentucky. Yes, maybe Mercer, but there's not that glaring omission this year. And I think that's just a testament to how good of a job our committee did.
Absolutely. And you have to be impressed. It's not an easy job. There's so many teams out there. There's so like how do you balance it? For me, I was looking at some of the first round matchups, and Emory, I want to get you back in here on this. What's your most intriguing first round matchup that you see on the board?
It's probably the one that involves, the team that a lot of people didn't think was going to get in, and that's Florida A&M against Southeastern Louisiana. It's a great matchup of strength versus strength. You have the high flying offense of Southeastern, the top defense in the FCS, statistically in Florida A&M. So something's got to give there. And you have a team that wanted to be in the playoffs in Florida A&M, and you also have a team that has the reigning Walter Payton Award winner and Cole Kelly and at quarterback. So this is a fantastic matchup. I think it's gonna be a great game. I don't know if Strawberry Stadium is going to be able to hold the amount of crowd that they're going to get from traveling in from Tallahassee to watch this game. It may be a pro Rattlers crowd if the folks in Hammond, Louisiana, aren't careful. And we know Rattlers travel well. So I think to me that's the most intriguing matchup and the one that I'm most excited to see.
And I definitely agree with you. I think that's a great matchup. It's a great opportunity to see strength on strength. We know that this Florida A&M team was one of the only defenses to shut down Jackson State outside of, what they did against ULM, but they really held Jackson State's offense in check early on in the year, and really nobody else was able to hold that offense in check all season. So it'll be interesting to see if they can hold up enough, and if that offense can put up enough points to be able to balance out what they're going to get from Southeastern Louisiana. Kevin, what's your your most intriguing first round matchup?
Oh, I think Emory's right. I'm really excited that the Rattlers are in the playoffs. Willie Simmons has turned himself into a really fine football coach. Really good. That's a really good team. Glad to see them in. But I mentioned it before, the Kennesaw and Davidson game. The Pioneer champion has upset Big Sky teams in situations like this before with San Diego. Well, it's not San Diego this year. It's Davidson, just like it was one year in the spring. So I'm really looking forward to that, mostly because I'm a ground and pound type of guy. I love the option. A lot of people don't. They say it's boring. But when it's run correctly, it's like watching Michelangelo paint the Sistine Chapel, man. There's nothing better than that. And both of these teams do it extremely well. They do it in different ways. So you're going to get to see, how many different formations can they run the same plays out of? It's going to be a beautiful, beautiful thing. I think the over-under on passes in that game is probably 11 or 12. But don't sell Kennesaw short in the passing game. They have won football games this year, going down the field in the last couple of minutes, throwing the ball. Their quarterback throws a nice ball, Shepard. They have some good guys on the outside, and they're going to be a matchup problem for anybody. But I'm very intrigued by Kennesaw and Davidson. I think it's going to be a whale of a game.
And I agree. I think that to a large extent, the Kennesaw Davidson game is going to be like that Spider-Man meme, pointing at each other. It's me. I think one of the interesting things about it though is defensively, who's going to be better prepared? Both of them are used to playing against this type of offense because they see it. But there is a little bit of difference when you're running that triple from under center than when you're doing it from the shotgun. And it'll be really interesting to see how Davidson is able to combat that when that thing comes at you fast and furious, like it does from Kennesaw State. I think it's actually, I believe Kennesaw State have a nice opportunity to make a run in the playoffs based off of the seed they have and who they have looking forward from here. Benjamin, what's your first round most intriguing matchup?
Yeah, so I'm going to say SFA and Incarnate Word, but I also would have hit on South Dakota State and UC Davis. South Dakota State, UC Davis, two teams at the very beginning of the year that looked like they could be national title contenders. You saw UC Davis take it to Tulsa, beat them at Tulsa. You saw South Dakota State just destroy Colorado State. And so two teams that really looked like they could win it all that kind of struggled towards the end of the year, snuck into the playoffs. But I think two teams, when they're at their best, could really compete for a national championship. So that'll be interesting. But also SFA and UIW, obviously the winner will come to Huntsville and play my Bearcats. But SFA is coming in off a 5-game winning streak. We've seen how good they can be. Took Sam Houston right down the wire, took Texas Tech right down the wire. And then UIW, they have Cam Ward, who's a sophomore quarterback for them, one of the most electric guys in all of college football. As a freshman last year, I think he was second in freshman of the year voting. So he's really incredible. So expect a lot of offense in that game with Trey Self and Xavier Gibson from SFA, and then from UIW, Cam Ward to just put up a ton of points. And I think either team could challenge Sam Houston if they play their best.
Absolutely. And I think that these are some really good matchups. I'm also big on, you know, those games where you're probably going to see a lot of points being scored. So that's a great matchup as well. I'm going to get you guys out of this on this. We always know that a lot of times it's about the road to the championship. Who has a path that seems to be of least resistance? Obviously, Sam playing at home, they're definitely going to have a great chance to get back to the championship again. But who would you say is who has the easiest road to the final game this year? Emory, we'll start with you. Oh, sorry, Emory. I think I have you muted. My apologies. Go ahead, Emory.
Well, I said I was gonna go with chalk here and say Sam Houston because I don't know what a loss looks like for Sam Houston. We hadn't seen them lose since 2019. You know, and this is a team that seems to have mastered the art of getting guys ready to play one game. They played the toughest schedule in the playoffs I've ever seen the team play. They had to go through murderer's row of former champions, right? And a really good Monmouth team. So they did that this year. They're the hunted now because a lot of people didn't want to give them credit for winning the national championship in the spring. So they knocked them for winning a spring championship, and all they did was go out and go undefeated in the regular season. So because they have that proverbial chip on their shoulder, the perception of their spring national champion, they didn't lose anybody to transfers. I think this is a team that no one wants to play because they can play any type of game and beat you in any kind of way.
Absolutely, and I agree. They're a team who is primed to play any type of matchup you want to play. Benjamin, I'll bring you in on this one because I think I know where you're going, but you know, what's your easiest path to the championship?
Yeah, and coming from a Bearcat fan, it's kind of surprising to hear, but I think we might have the easiest path. One, because we have home field advantage the whole way, and then you face the 8 seed Montana State. You don't have to run into a JMU, a Montana, a North Dakota State until you get to that national championship. So I think we really might have that easiest path. But I also think that lower left quadrant of the bracket with Villanova and Sacramento State, I think that's kind of a softer part of the bracket too, with Sacred Heart and Holy Cross. You can kind of get a free win there. So I would say Sam Houston probably has the easiest path, but also that bottom left side of the bracket is also a little softer than the other ones.
I think you muted yourself, Gene. Go mute yourself, Coach Clemens. But I think it's definitely North Dakota State. And if you look at how people are giving ETSU very little chance, if whoever wins the Kennesaw Davidson game, if East Tennessee State can win, you know they're going to match up road trip to Fargo, right? So that's a tough trip. James Madison still, that's still one of the more impressive victories in the playoff era in FCS, I think, that's happened when you go to the Fargo Dome and win. But Benjamin, I know this will please you. I've got NDSU and Sam Houston in the title game, and y'all winning it. So, I mean, and Emory was spot on. Sam Houston, they can slug with you. They can have a shootout with you. They can do something in between. I think they're a team that has a really great shot with how it's all going to line up. And I think everybody would like to see Sam Houston and North Dakota State and Frisco. I know I would. I'll be there. Benjamin, I'm sure you will. Hope Emory and Gene, I hope you all get to come too. It's going to be a heck of a playoffs. I'm really looking forward to it. And I think the Bison are going to be there on the last day of the season again. And so will Sam Houston. And that ought to be a really great game.
Well, I agree. I think to a certain extent, it's been set up for Sam Houston and North Dakota State to meet. I think if you look at the way in which the brackets have been set up, they put themselves in a position that Sam has a great opportunity to be a defending champion that will either have to go up against a JMU, where you will have two teams who are leaving FCS playing for the FCS title, or you will have the perennial power in North Dakota State sitting there trying to reclaim their throne. Either way, those are great storylines, but I'm going to go different. I think Villanova got the jewel of the draw, because no offense to Holy Cross and the Sacred Heart, but there is no way there should be a Holy Cross Sacred Heart first round matchup. Like that's when the regional thing gets in the way of what should be and what should not be. To have a Holy Cross and Sacred Heart play each other in the first round, and then essentially one of those teams that are usually probably a one and done team going on to the second round to play against a team like Villanova, who should be, because that's what everybody tells me, CAA teams, these teams are really good, right? They should be able to handle them. That allows them to walk into a Sacramento State team that hasn't, like, they're good this year, but what do we really know about them in the playoffs and what they're going to be able to do with this playoff atmosphere? So I think it'll be really interesting to see what happens there. Once they get to Sam, obviously, it's Sam. You've got to pull off some type of thing, but just getting all the way to that mark, I think they have the easiest way to go of everybody. So, or the easiest way to get to that point outside of Sam Houston, which I think obviously has a straight beeline to a championship, unless something crazy happens. Gentlemen, I really do appreciate you joining me. We could talk all day about all of this stuff. Emory Hunt, make sure that you're checking out the FCS football kickoff show presented by Next Level Sports. You'll see me on there for sure, weekly on Saturday mornings. Make sure that you're following sports of SHSU. That's where you'll see Benjamin and all of his work, and following not just football, but all of the sports that are associated with Sam Houston. And then make sure you're tuning in to the FCS Nation on radio show. Fellas, I really do appreciate you joining me. Until we see what happens this Saturday, to all of the people out there, congratulations. Really congratulations to Florida A&M and what they were able to do after losing a tough game, the first game of the season. But I'm really looking forward to seeing what's going to come out of this season. So I appreciate you guys for joining me.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Gene. Always great to see you again, Mr. Hunt. Seems like we've done this thing a time or two before.
Right. People don't know we hosted a radio show. We hosted the radio show.
That's right.
In the FCS for quite some time.
That's
so
right.
Very familiar.
And finally got to meet in Fargo.
Exactly.
On the field. I was a little hungover. You were not. It was a beautiful thing.
Well, that's awesome, fellas. I really do appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure that y'all are following, like, and subscribe, and make sure you follow everybody on their social media. Until next time, I've been Coach Gene Clemens. Make sure you tell the people that you love them. Have a good one.